In June, about 18 months after a radioactive leak took the San Onofre nuclear power plant offline, the operator announced the plant would shut down permanently. Now the debate is over who will pick up the tab, where replacement power will come from, and what will happen to the radioactive waste left on site. KPBS editor Allison St. John covered this. Welcome, Allison. What finally convinced the operator, Southern California Edison, to cut its losses and shut down the plant permanently?
Well, Southern California Edison spent millions to try to convince regulators that in fact it could fix the problem. You remember that it was the steam generators. They just had installed some steam generators about a year before, and the design was different, and all the tubes were rattling together, and there was premature wear, which led to the leak. So they tried to convince the NRC, the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, that they could in fact fix this leak. But the NRC was really taking a long time and asking more and more questions, and after about 18 months of going through endless investigations and claiming that they'd found the source of it and still not getting the go-ahead, they decided that the risk to the investors was too great. The other thing was that their license was going to come to an end in 2022 anyway, so that might have put a stop to the whole thing. And then thirdly, there were some other issues coming up, like seismic issues that could have been even more expensive in the future.
So after all is said and done, who's to blame for this costly blunder?
Well, Mitsubishi, of course, is the company that built the steam generators, and they are being currently sued by Southern California Edison. They claim that, no, they shouldn't have to pay this because they would have been willing to fix it if they'd been given a chance. In the meantime, you know, there are just hundreds of millions. There's $700 million that the steam generators cost, $800 million just to keep the plant open in 2012. There was $530 million for replacement power, and then there was all the 900 employees that got laid off and had to get compensated for that. At the moment, Senator Barbara Boxer is holding an or asking for an investigation to look into who is really to blame, because she believes that the NRC is withholding documents and may actually be attempting to protect the company and itself.
Any sign that the NRC is going to turn over those documents?
There is no news of that at all at the moment. We have not heard from Alison McFarlane, the head of the NRC.
So who's going to end up paying for all of this?
Well, that's the big question. Is it going to be the investors? Is it going to be the ratepayers? And Mitsubishi's liability is limited to $140 million. So we were talking about hundreds of millions, probably more than a billion. And there's some insurance money, which could be another $240 million, but that still leaves hundreds of millions. Edison said that $300 or $400 million could be the problem for the investors. The ratepayers now are going through hearings with the CPUC, who are looking to see if, in fact, the ratepayers ought to be reimbursed, because many people argue that the ratepayers shouldn't be paying for all of this, that it's the fault of the company and shouldn't be the public's problem. And recently they came out with a decision that $94 million should be returned to ratepayers, which sounds like a lot, but when you're thinking in terms of the bigger picture of hundreds of millions, it's actually not very much.
So how are the power companies in California going to make up for the loss of energy, which is about 20% from San Onofre?
Well, we have a graph here, and if you have a look at the graph, you'll see that importing power from other states is actually one of the ways that we're making up for that lost energy. The pale blue part of the graph at the top there, you can see that it's increasing. The yellow part is, in fact, the nuclear part, and it is decreasing. And then natural gas, which is the dark blue line at the bottom, will, I think, be increasing in the future if people like Edison and Southern California, SDG&E, have their way, because they would like to put more natural gas plants in place. There's quite a bit of controversy over that, as people argue we should be investing in more sustainable. And I think this is sort of setting the field for quite a big battle in coming years over how we will replace that energy.
So now that San Onofre is closed, can we all stop worrying about a nuclear accident just miles up the coast from San Diego?
Well, the trouble is that all the spent nuclear fuel has nowhere else to go. So basically it's going to stay there for anything up to 300 years. The NRC recently held hearings to renew the environmental impact statement to say that it would be not damaging to the environment to leave it there for up to 300 years. And just now some local jurisdictions are beginning to complain that actually putting it in casks, they would cool it down in ponds and then store it in casks on a possibly seismically active coast is not a safe solution at all.
Allison St. John, KPBS editor, thanks for coming on the program.
Thank you, Amita.